Nerdrotic.com.
Greetings, you over 1 million hellions and the 40% who haven't subscribed yet. To all of my fellow fans out there of high or epic fantasy, whichever you prefer, I feel your frustration. Outside of 1 3/4 of a season of House of the Dragon, it's been failure after failure, which is strange because our favorite genre or subgenre is tailor-made for the Prestige series, and we have the technology to make it today. We should be in a golden age. Unfortunately, Hollywood lacked the brain power to adapt any of these stories properly, and we've been stuck with intersectional feminist versions of The Witcher, The Wheel of Time, and Lord of the Rings. And now we've gone from being excited to see our favorite stories adapted to absolutely dreading it. This brings us to the Hyborian Age of Robert E. Howard, which preceded the published works of Tolkien's Secondary World, one that thankfully has been untouched since the abysmal 2011 Conan. But that changed a couple of days ago. I think we could start with the good news, which is I won't be talking about a horribly adapted Conan story starring Pedro Pascal, who's taught the riddle of steel from a tribe of lesbians who force him to apologize to all the monsters he tried to kill, and overall being a toxic male. The bad news is we are going to be talking about a film taking place in the Hyborian Age, which has been sitting on the shelf for almost 2 years and got a one-day release in the theaters, and it shouldn't have been released at all. And that film is Red Sonja, who's gone from the she-devil with a sword to a matriarchal eco-warrior. And after watching it, the only question I have is,
Why?
was it an obligatory release just to maintain the rights, or was it just cutting your losses and hope you can get some money back? Sure. Was this the worst movie I've seen this year? Surprisingly, no. But it does put an exclamation point on the girl boss killed epic fantasy. And no, there was never going to be a good time to release this movie. And as many have pointed out, it has gone through production hell. I remember seeing at Comic-Con giant posters of Rose McGowan as Red Sonja, directed by her boyfriend Robert Rodriguez, but then they broke up. Then Simon West, director of Con Air and Lara Croft, was in talks with the possibility of getting Amber Heard to star, which might have been a good pick at the time, but nobody gives a shit about her anymore after she gave one to Johnny. Then Bryan Singer was attached until there was a little bit too much controversy over some allegations that he has denied, and then fled the country.
You are a fast mover. Please have a seat right there.
And then things went quiet for a little while until the success of Wonder Woman, which had a lot to do with Kevin Feige changing gears with the MCU and turning it into the MCU. Millennium Media, who owns the rights, thought they would get their piece of the pie by producing a woke, gender-fluid Red Sonja from Tasha Huo, who was a screenwriter for Witcher Blood Origin, and directed by Joey Soloway, the former showrunner of Transparent, and starring Hannah John Kamen from Ant-Man and the Wasp and Thunderbolts. Yes, the resemblance is uncanny. And to make things worse, them were going to adapt some of the comic books. Now, normally you would say, hey, that's pretty good news, but it depends on which run. And them chose Gail Simones, one of the founding feminists of the SJW age of comic books, an era that has had devastating repercussions to this very day, and an era that led to all those bad superhero movies you've been watching lately. She invented the term fridging, and no, not because she's really attached to one. Fridging is a literary and narrative trope where a character, usually a female, is harmed, killed, or otherwise brutalized primarily to serve as a plot device for the protagonist. And it comes directly from the Green Lantern comic where Kyle Rayner finds his murdered girlfriend in a refrigerator. You would think after hearing all that this project would be dead on arrival, and you'd be right because something very strange and unusual happened. A moment of clarity and sanity in Hollywood. Joey Holloway, the director, and star Hannah John Kamen either were shown the door or left the project. Then Millennium Media did the unthinkable by casting a Red Sonja that might actually look like Red Sonja in Matilda Lutz. Then they transitioned directors to MJ Bassett, who's directed episodes of Ash vs. Evil Dead, Reacher, Terminalist, all great shows, but he, at the time, also directed the underrated banger Solomon Kane. So it looks like the studio may have dodged a bullet. You might be correctly wondering why I haven't gotten into the actual movie yet, and the answer is, quite frankly, the production chaos leading up to its release is far more interesting. Because it turns out getting rid of the obviously really bad ideas, but keeping some of the regular bad ideas wasn't a good idea. I've put this off long enough. Let's talk about the absolute cinema of Red Sonja.
Sonja, the earth is bleeding.
And grant me the power to find those who did this.
I will do what damage I can.
You know what, Red? You are quite the woman.
It will be every tribe, every people who defy him.
Many will say correctly that Red Sonja 2025 is just an episode of Xena, minus all the plot, characterization, levity, Bruce Campbell, and lesbian innuendo. Remember when lesbians were fun? Anyhow, while it has been reported in an effort to make this movie better, the gender fluids have been drained from the original script. Unfortunately, the original script remains, as Tasha Huo is credited as the lone writer, which means a lot of the Gail Simone isms are still there. Instead of the iconic ginger clad in her chainmail bikini, she-devil with a sword on a quest for vengeance, we have a dyed ginger clad in her chainmail bikini on a quest to save the planet, be kind to CGI animals, and administer therapy to our enemies. The film opens up in the peaceful and abundant land of Hyrcania, where everyone lives in peace under the Mother Goddess, including little Red Sonja and her matriarchal town. Until, of course, the nasty barbarians show up and sack the village, and whoever isn't lucky enough to either die or escape is enslaved. And as far as that other thing that barbarians and gladiators do, well, this is a very different Hyborian age where apparently they all have HR departments and they've given that up. Hey, look at this guy. He looks pretty evil. I wonder if he'll be the big bad considering he just sacked Red Sonja's town.
Nope.
Now, this is a slight departure from Red Sonja's original origin in the comics. Quick side note, Robert E. Howard's Red Sonja with a Y is a gunslinging Polish-Ukrainian warrior woman from the 1600s. The metal bikini-clad version we all know and love is actually from the comics. She was brought into the Hyborian Age by Barry Windsor Smith and Roy Thomas, the EIC that succeeded Stan Lee at Marvel. And their origin was a little different. A much older Red Sonja in her late teens or early 20s lived on the steppes of Hyrcania until her town was sacked by raiders, her family brutally murdered, and she was brutally assaulted. She cries for vengeance to the red goddess Skaha, who imbues her with fighting skills. But she cannot lay with a man unless he bests her in fair combat. Red Sonja 2025 leans into the Gail Simone of it all, whose only notable contributions to Red Sonja are removing the assault so she still has her agency. Gail, are you saying something like that? Remove somebody's agency? Not a good look. Anyway, her only other two notable contributions are giving Red Sonja body odor and making her bisexual, which, to be fair, is not in the movie, but she does have bad BO. Fast forward a few years and Sonja is living peacefully in the forest amongst the animals, where she is leisurely on a quest to find her lost people, bathing with her clothes on, and stalking poachers who killed the Hyborian rhinos for their horns.
Let's make some money!
In a not very well thought out plan, Red Sonja decides to attack the poachers in an encampment by herself. Then she goes full PETA activist, but in this case I think it would be PTAC, People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals and Creatures. Of course she takes out the big burly dudes, but then loses in a girl fight to Bridget Nielsen. Following that ill-advised move, she's caught, enslaved, and sent off to be a gladiator. And this is where we're introduced to our big bad. No, it's not some barbarian king, it's Emperor Beta, who's Klaus from Umbrella Academy. Of course, epic fantasy requires a suspension of disbelief, but I could buy that Red Sonja can survive in this world because it's something they've established in the comic books, but they haven't quite done it in the film yet. But I draw the line at this little dude becoming emperor in the Hyborian Age without being a sorcerer. Instead, he's a scientist who possesses half of a Hyrcanian book with ancient scientific technology where he's able to produce arcane energy. Now, I love the concept of science versus magic in fantasy. Maybe they'll explain how this little skinny kid rose from a slave to an emperor building machines and conquering the known world. But now he needs the second half of the book to complete his conquest. And listen, as fantasy fans, we can all understand the frustration of an unfinished book, am I right? Meanwhile, at gladiator school, Red Sonja is thrown in with a group of pretty nice gladiators. A mixed group of men and women, and they look like they have a pretty strong HR department considering everyone's honoring each other's personal space, which I guess is fitting because outside of this guy, these gladiators look like your average school faculty. And yes, including her. Then we get to the moment we've all been waiting for. Red Sonja is finally clad in her metal bikini. And props to Matilda, she obviously did her work and wears it well. But this wasn't done without comment.
Did they ever make you wear this?
I would have cut the balls from any man who tried to make me.
Well, that's awkward. After a fellow female gladiator dies that we're supposed to care about, but we don't, Sonja is brought to the Emperor for misbehaving because the script dictates that he needs to find out she is Hyrcanian and she needs to find out that he has the first half of the Hyrcanian book. And it's also supposed to hint at some connection. Gee, I wonder if it has anything to do with all the flashbacks we've seen of a young Red Sonja escaping her village and being separated from a little boy. Then Emperor Beta threatens Red Sonja that he will kill the entire gladiatorial faculty with a mind-controlled Cyclops unless she tells him where the last of those pesky Hyrcanians are.
What I want is you to tell us all where the last of those pesky Hyrcanians are.
But now at least we're gonna finally see Red Sonja go up against a Cyclops, where she immediately recognizes the collar that Emperor Beta is using to control it and removes it, because who wants to see Red Sonja fight a Cyclops when she can free it and have it attack its oppressors? And due to obvious budget constraints, the Cyclops fucks off never to be seen again. This allows the gladiatorial faculty to escape, but on the way out, Red Sonja destroys the arcane power source. Because remember, she's not just a warrior, she's an eco-warrior. They escape to the mountains, and now Dragon, who's Emperor Beta, is desperate. So he offers to finally marry schizophrenic Bridget Nielsen, who hears all the voices of the people she killed in her head. All she has to do is bring him the head of Red Sonja. Now, for some reason, Dragon hasn't slept with her yet, even though she's wanted to.
Don't you want to stay here? Spend some time together?
We're always together.
Why have we never shared a bed?
I think it's pretty obvious. After getting the only Hyrcanian that she knows killed, Sonja and the rest of the gladiatorial staff plan to attack the town that supplies Emperor Beta with his creatures. And it's at this point Sonja just randomly runs into the lost Hyrcanian people she's been looking for her whole life.
But wait! There's more!
She also randomly runs into their king in a tree.
I'd prefer it if you didn't kill my friends.
You are a king.
I am.
A battle ensues, they take heavy losses, the one guy who actually looks like a gladiator dies at the hands of a beast man, and Sonja takes a mortal wound from schizophrenic Bridget Nielsen. Sonja is saved by her horse and taken to the mother goddess. And this is where we finally get the Red Sonja origin, where she is imbued with her incredible fighting skill, although she hasn't done really that bad throughout the movie. She's also imbued with a worse dye job, some makeup, and oh yeah, the metal bikini is gone and it's replaced by a metal skirt. But now it's time for Red Sonja to get her revenge. No, not against the barbarian king who sacked her town as a child because he was killed by Emperor Beta. So now it's time for Red Sonja to confront her nemesis Dragon. Red Sonja, the gladiatorial faculty, and what's left of the Hyrcanian people attack Dragon's forces, which is preceded by Red Sonja's epic battle cry. I would just surrender to make her stop. Anyway, Beast Man, of course, gets killed by Beast Woman, and before Sonja can even get to him, Emperor Dragon and schizophrenic Bridget Nielsen end up mortally wounding each other and then parting ways with the modern Hollywood head touch. Now, we know why they did it here for obvious reasons, but if you notice that's a thing, a lot of people touching heads instead of kissing, it reeks of intimacy coordinator trying to justify their existence. And this brings us to the exciting conclusion of Red Sonja, the she-devil with the sword, where she sits down and has a therapy session with her enemy. Turns out Dragon was that little boy Red Sonja got separated from while her village was getting sacked. No one saw that coming. And after the Emperor got his hands on the second half of the Lost Hyrcanian book, the book was useless, making the end of this movie useless. I guess the first half was filled with a bunch of ancient technology to help construct killing machines, and the second half was about the various uses of CBD oils. Turns out that Dragon had this book all along since he was a child. He learned how to read on it, he learned how to decipher and extract all the information from it, and somehow construct it while he was in slavery, hiding it in various places, including his prison wallet. So Red Sonja and Dragon hold hands, and he dies. Everybody's happy, and Sonja is off with her bad dye job to wander the Hyborian age. And at the end, we finally see the real Red Sonja, who's drinking and cavorting with a bunch of barbarians until she's called back into action, and when she leaves, she stabs an apple.
Message!
You might ask, why in the hell would she stab an apple? Well, Adam and Eve, feminism. Now again, this isn't the worst film I've seen this year, and given it had a $17 million budget, the CGI and the cinematography were fine. The directing was fine, and the soundtrack was actually pretty good, and if you recognize the composer, it's the same one from The Witcher and One Piece, and it wasn't really even the performances. Matilda Lutz gave it her all, except for that battle cry. No, its biggest crime was sticking with Tasha Huo.
Who?
Huo.
Who?
Huo.
Who?
Tasha Huo's script was abysmal, and maybe it wasn't as bad as the previous script, but it's still filled with modernity. And sorry to state the obvious, but Red Sonja is not some sort of PETA therapist eco-warrior. Knowing you had a $17 million budget, maybe you should have leaned into what Red Sonja actually is. Blood, guts, and boobs. I mean, this makes the 1985 Red Sonja film with Bridget Nielsen look like Robert E. Howard. And not just because it had Arnold as totally not Conan in it. And just because this isn't the worst example of the girl boss trope, Red Sonja 2025 does encapsulate the absolute state of epic fantasy on film and television. Hell, this can go to the comics and publishing as well. The deliberate emasculation of stories made for men. Something best summed up when the now fired Jennifer Salke from Amazon decided to pass on a Conan series from Ryan Condell and Miguel Sapochnik over toxic masculinity. Because all masculinity is toxic masculinity to Hollywood. And sure, it's making a comeback with action movies, but not in epic fantasy. And if women have such a problem with toxic masculinity, then explain their obsession with true crime to me. So hundreds of millions to billions were spent, and hundreds of millions to billions were lost on things like The Witcher, Willow, The Wheel of Time, and The Rings of Power. And they all failed for the same reason: feminized girl boss gobbledygook. And now that Hollywood's removed all the masculinity from the male brands, they're wondering where the men went. And Red Sonja, an OG, is another victim of this. If they had just gone ahead with the Robert Rodriguez, Rose McGowan version, they would have been better off. Instead, they waited too long and put it into production and released it in the worst era possible. An era where most fans are much happier to hear something like Conan and Elric not being made into a film or a TV show.
And if you do not listen, then the hell with you.
Nerdrotic.com.
If you like what you heard, please like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what you heard, I thank you for listening this long. I will see you in the next video.